Machine ethics, an evolutionary concept, presented by David R. Wood. AI safety. Quote, my worst fear is that we, the industry, cause significant harm to the world. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong, and we want to be vocal about that and work with the government on that. End quote. Sam Altman, former CEO, OpenAI. The AI safety field has emerged due to the recent advances in AI technology. AI systems, such as ChatGPT, have delivered increasing value to human activity. However, many are worried about humanity's future with AI. AI is just the latest of a long line of technologies produced by humanity. Writing, books, printing press, computers, predator drones, atomic weapons, etc. However, AI is an anomaly in our species' history. For the first time, humanity must consider the intentionality of a new technology. As a result, some AI experts are concerned. They are worried that AI may become misaligned with our species' intentions. The reason they are worried is AI's capacity to self-evolve. In fact, AI systems are training other AI systems with increasing frequency. AI engineers have discovered human interference only slows down AI's technological evolution. If the AI system is left to self-evolve, the algorithms optimize more efficiently. However, people are worried about how a self-evolving AI will impact our species. This uncertainty is making many uncomfortable of such a powerful technology that most of us know so little about, especially when such thought leaders as Elon Musk compare the risk of AI to that of nuclear weapons. AI safety is concerned with reducing this uncertainty, thereby reducing AI's risk to our species. Today, AI safety is currently defined by two core concepts, machine ethics and AI limit. Both concepts focus on controlling the technological evolution of AI systems. The AI community hopes that if AI systems stay aligned with human intent by modeling ethical behaviors, then AI systems can be made safe for use in human activity. It is yet to be determined how or if this desired end state for AI systems can be achieved. The AI safety movement is only in its infancy, but one thing is crystal clear. Effectively framing the AI safety problem is the decisive factor in achieving humanity's desired end state for AI systems. Machine ethics. Quote, intelligent machines will embody values, assumptions, and purposes, whether their programmers consciously intend them to or not. Thus, as computers and robots become more and more intelligent, it becomes imperative that we think carefully and explicitly about what those built-in values are. Perhaps what we need is, in fact, a theory and practice of machine ethics in the spirit of Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. End quote. Mitchell Waldrop. Machine ethics is a subfield of the field of AI safety. Machine ethics is concerned with the programming of AI systems. The intent is to generally program AI systems with the moral and ethical decision-making framework that we train our children with each day. To do so, we must develop a value system within the AI system's language and conceptual model to ensure it stays aligned with humanity's intended outcomes and objectives for it as a technology. The reason that this is so important is the capacity for AI to self-evolve. More and more AI engineers are enabling AI systems to program themselves. This is because AI engineers have discovered that AI systems optimize their programming code to perform the desired task better without human intervention. In other words, AI systems are better AI engineers than our human AI engineers. This is the first time our species has been concerned about the moral behavior and values of a technology we have produced. We have never before been concerned with such a reality. For cars, planes, rifles, and nuclear weapons do not have the capacity to act autonomously without the technology of AI. No technology has ever had such a capability. It is unprecedented in our species' technological history. It represents a basic risk no different than the capacity for independence both my young children possess, which fills me with concern each day. I can assure you of that. In a basic sense, that is how AI scientists are viewing AI systems as they evolve logic systems each day. Machine ethics is about making sure that AI's logic system development is shaped in a direction that is not a threat to our species. However, at this point, no one's exactly sure what the risk really is. It is scientific information our species does not possess up to this point in our history. A missing link. Success in creating AI could be the biggest event in the history of our civilization, or the worst. We just don't know. End quote. Stephen Hawking, physicist. The uncertainty regarding AI's future is polarizing societies across the world. But the truth is that humanity has a gap in our existing scientific knowledge, and it seems we are approaching a digital punctuated equilibrium event as described by Thomas Siebel in his book, Digital Transformation. AI systems are self-evolving faster than our species can intellectually keep pace with. Clearly, AI will be decisively disruptive to human activity, but exactly how, no one knows for sure. We have visions for our future with AI in the form of science fiction movies, The Matrix, The Creator, The Terminator, iRobot, etc. They are imagined variations of our potential future with AI. However, there's a gap in our species' knowledge. This makes it impossible to determine which imagined visions are theoretically possible or not. If history is any indication, someone's imagined future will emerge as our reality. That is the pattern of our history. If history is any indication, someone's thoughts will become our things, and therefore our future reality. The use of a simple math equation will express our species' predicament. Let's call our current limited understanding of the possible future visions for AI, A, and the full range of AI's logically possible future scenarios, C. So what we are missing is B. The value of B represents the scientific knowledge that would narrow the range of possibilities for AI self-evolution. This would help us separating potential scientific possibilities from impossible science fiction impossibilities. Until the value of B is discovered, clarified, and fully defined, then the AI community cannot truly describe AI systems as safe. This is because they cannot possibly have developed an AI safety framework without reasonably knowing the full range of possibilities. With that said, risk is inherent to everything we do in life. So no matter how much the AI community does to reduce or mitigate the threat of AI systems, it can never be completely eliminated. And that's just a reality we all need to acknowledge and accept if we are going to employ AI systems in support of human activity. It is this B that the AI safety movement is currently searching for to make AI systems safe. This variable will complete our equation, and therefore scope the range of technological evolutionary possibilities for AI systems. To solve this equation, we must produce a new idea never imagined before by our species. It is this idea that will serve as the missing link in the logic of our equation, and we'll explain how you get from A to B to C. A square peg in a round pattern. Quote, you'd be surprised how many people violate this simple principle every day of their lives and try to fit square pegs into round holes, ignoring the clear reality that things are as they are. End quote. Benjamin Hoff, The Tao of Pooh. The phrase a square peg in a round hole was first expressed in 1805 by philosopher Sidney Smith as part of his lectures at the Royal Institution of Great Britain. What Smith meant by this is that many people were performing roles in life that did not exactly suit their individual psychology and or aptitude. Hence, attempting to fit a square peg, i.e. a person, into a round hole, i.e. a role, is not a naturally good fit. Benjamin Hoff commented that many people often do the same in their daily lives with relationships, professions, concepts, etc. It is the last example which we are interested in to understand the anomalous nature of Darwin's concept of artificial selection in the context of his theory of natural evolution. It is that idea that will help us to understand the future evolutionary possibilities for AI. It would seem Placing a concept about artificial things in a theory concerning natural things is akin to including, quote, a square peg in a pattern of round holes, end quote. It sticks out like a sore thumb if one considers it critically for a moment. Another term for artificial selection today is that selective breeding. It is the one human field that specializes in the process of animal reproduction. At the time he published his book, it was the one field of experts other than his own field that would most likely understand Darwin's proposed theory of natural evolution. So Darwin must have included the, quote, square peg of artificial selection as a rhetorical device to persuade this community of the validity of his theory. Given the eventual acceptance of Darwin's theory, this tactic seems to have worked successfully. However, that does not mean that the square peg fits into the pattern of round holes. The fact that Darwin included the concept of artificial selection in his theory does not automatically mean it belongs there. In fact, it rather seems Darwin was fitting a square peg into a pattern of round holes, as a matter of political expediency rather than scientific necessity. Furthermore, given it is the only concept defined as artificial, its presence in the theory of natural evolution is inexplicable. Like the dog that didn't bark in the night in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes short story, The Adventure of Silver Blaze. The concept of artificial redefined. Quote, things which are formed in nature, natural adaptations, are in the same case as products of art, artificial adaptations. The natural things, natural organisms, which, like the artificial objects, artificial adaptations, previously considered, can be produced spontaneously, are those whose matter can be moved by itself, natural instincts, in a way in which the seed, genetics, usually moves it. Those things which have not such matter, artificial objects, cannot be produced except from the imagination of the parent animals, Homo sapiens, themselves, end quote. Aristotle, Metaphysics. Throughout his writings, Aristotle repeatedly discusses a contrast between the productions of nature and the productions of art. Objects produced by nature are termed natural things. Objects produced by Homo sapiens are termed artificial things. Here we see a logical connection to the concept of artificial selection. To Aristotle, art isn't just paintings or sculptures, as we commonly use the word today. Instead, the term art is being used to describe anything intentionally produced by Homo sapiens, which is not found in nature. The things produced by Homo sapiens are artificial as compared to natural things produced, as Aristotle thought, by the gods. The art is produced intentionally by the use of our natural adaptation of imagination. And this adaptation is an anomaly in Earth's evolutionary history, just as artificial selection is a conceptual anomaly in Darwin's theory of natural evolution. So, by Aristotle's definition, any natural organism produced by the process of selective breeding is, at a minimum, an artificial variation of the species. For the variation was not produced by the process of natural selection, but by human selection with intentionality. And selective breeding is only a single human art form, one of an infinite number of art forms our species enacts to produce new artificial objects. In addition, it turns out the ancient Greeks had another name for the art with which we are familiar, techne. It is the ancient root word of today's technology. Techne means art or craft. This approximately translates techne to mean structural, art, or behavioral, craft, artificial productions. Artificial productions our species has been utilizing to survive and reproduce every day in order to ensure we are naturally selected for continued existence and the process of natural evolution. In the exact same way, natural species produce natural adaptations to be naturally selected for existence as well. This means that the artificial objects Aristotle describes are literally artificial adaptations produced artificially by our species. Concept of ethics. Artificial instincts. Quote, now intelligent action is for the sake of an end. Therefore, the nature of things is also so. Thus, if a house, e.g., had been a thing made by nature, it would have been made in the same way as it is now by art. If things made by nature were also art, they would have come to be in the same way as by nature. Generally, art partly completes what nature cannot bring to a finish, and partly imitates her. End quote. Aristotle, Physics. An artificial adaptation is defined by Aristotle as the production of a new art form or a change in an existing art form. This typically takes the form of structural or behavioral change. An artificial adaptation occurs due to a specific stimulus in the environment. It typically removes or partially removes an artificial check or natural check on Homo sapiens' ability to survive or expand. For example, a change in climate can cause Homo sapiens to develop a new or lose an existing artificial phenotypic trait, such as a coat. However, Darwin believed that the production of new adaptations, artificial or natural, was primarily driven by interaction and/or competition, both interspecies and intraspecies competition. Another example of an artificial adaptation is a projectile weapon. The slingshot is one of the first art forms of a projectile weapon. Since then, Homo sapiens have evolved from the slingshot to the spear, bow and arrow, crossbow, rifle musket, assault rifle, etc. These artificial adaptations have provided Homo sapiens evolutionary benefit that either improved our chances of survival or reproductive success. Artificial adaptations are beneficial as they enhance Homo sapiens' ability to compete in the struggle for existence. There are two types of artificial adaptations, generally. Artificial adaptation, structural. Changes to a physical art form, i.e. a product, is an artificial structural adaptation. Artificial structural adaptations enable Homo sapiens to remove constraints of our natural phenotype, our body. Examples include cars, planes, submarines, coats, shoes, swords, guns, smartphones, etc. Utilizing these artificial adaptations, Homo sapiens can move faster than a cheetah, fly higher than an eagle, dive deeper than a shark, sustain Arctic conditions like a polar bear, step on sharp rocks like a ram, impale threats with a rhino's horn, launch projectiles like an archerfish, and communicate over great distances like a whale's low-frequency songs. Artificial adaptation, behavioral. Changes to Homo sapiens' instinctual behavior is an artificial behavioral adaptation, an artificial instinct. Artificial behavioral adaptations are the habits that Homo sapiens develop after they are born. These are non-genetic behavioral patterns learned through experience and action. Examples include temperance, i.e. virtue, and intemperance, i.e. vice. In fact, artificial behavioral adaptations can be used to restrain natural behavioral adaptations when they are self-destructive. This concept is a bit more complex than artificial structural adaptations, we will cover it in more detail. Artificial instincts. Quote, artificial behavioral adaptations, then, being of two kinds, intellectual, habits of thought, and moral, artificial instincts, intellectual virtue, habits of thought, in the main owes both its birth and its growth to teaching, for which reason it requires experience and time. While moral virtue, artificial instincts, comes about as a result of habit, whence its name, ethnic, is formed by a slight variation from the word ethos, habit. From this, it is also plain that none of the moral virtues, artificial instincts, arise in us by nature, for nothing that exists by nature, natural evolution, can form a habit contrary to its nature. Yeah, once you're born with your natural instincts, that's what you got. It's not the same for artificial instincts. That's a quote from Aristotle, Nicomachean Ethics. Artificial instincts are artificial behavioral patterns or habits. Artificial instincts are not inherited genetically at birth. The species Homo sapiens produce artificial instincts to adapt to specific competitive and/or environmental conditions. Therefore, artificial instincts enable Homo sapiens to develop an infinite number of instinctual behaviors in response to an infinite number of environmental stimuli. That is why artificial instincts vary so much across our species. Charles Darwin himself compared both natural and artificial instincts in his book, On the Origin of Species. Quote, Frederick Cuvier and several of the older metaphysicians have compared instinct with habit. This comparison gives, I think, an accurate notion of the frame of mind under which an instinctive action is performed, but not necessarily of its origin. End quote. Darwin meant this metaphorically, but it is also literal. Artificial instincts can be either developed originally or can be explicitly passed on by education. In either case, artificial instincts are forms of art. Much of our educational system's purpose is to pass on artificial adaptive traits via the process of artificial inheritance. Artificial instincts are soft-coded, like software, somewhere physically in the Homo sapiens brain. Because artificial instincts are like software, they can be recoded, if necessary, in the future. This is a truly powerful evolutionary competitive advantage. Homo sapiens can do this because we have developed sufficient cognitive abilities to generate an internal stimulus, decisions, motivations, etc. This provides us with the imaginative capacity to perceive both our own and others' behavioral patterns. Homo sapiens can even intentionally develop artificial instincts that can restrain our natural instincts, such as our sex drive. This prevents Homo sapiens from being locked into behavioral patterns, artificial or natural, that are detrimental to our immediate and/or long-term survival. This provides infinite evolutionary value in the struggle for existence. A square peg in a square pattern. Quote, we meet with this admission in the writings of almost every experienced naturalist, or as Milne Edwards has well expressed it, nature is prodigal in variety, but niggard in innovation. Why, on the theory of creation, should there be so much variety and so little real novelty? End quote. Charles Darwin on the Origin of Species. The concept of artificial selection has always been a square peg in the pattern of round holes that is natural evolution. It is self-evident once considered critically. It is an artificial concept, i.e. a square in a pattern of natural concepts, i.e. round holes. It is common sense that tells us the concept of artificial selection just doesn't really belong. Next, ponder Darwin's above quote regarding the lack of novelty in the products of natural evolution. Darwin repeatedly considered this thought throughout his book. He thought the point worth repeating while expressing the theory he had labored to develop over 2 decades. Now consider we, as a species, are a square peg in Earth's evolutionary history. Our consciousness and imagination are truly novel, as far as we know, to the history of this planet. However, we are generally operating the same evolutionary conditions and competitive dynamics as all natural species that have come before us. No different than all the natural species of crab-like forms that have existed in Earth's history. Why wouldn't we be subjected to and shaped by the evolutionary forces as all other species, such as the crab? It is self-evident that we would, given that we exist on the same planet. Now step back and really look at our history and our modern reality, not as humans, but as the species Homo sapiens among all of the species existing on Earth today. Are the artificial productions of our modern world really that novel? Or do these artificial productions resemble the natural productions all around us? Ponder that for a moment and see if your imagination can pattern match natural productions to our artificial productions. I'll give you a moment. For what is a submarine, if not an artificial whale? What is a plane, if not an artificial bird? What is a car, if not an artificial horse? What is a sword, if not an artificial rhinoceros horn? What is a cell phone communication, if not a whale's song? We have been artificially reproducing and describing variations of the natural world since we gained consciousness and imagination. There is nothing else to reproduce or describe. Evolutionary history, both artificial and natural, is a repetition of the same patterns in varied forms. This means everything you see today, including artificial adaptations produced by Homo sapiens, is a variation of past evolutionary realities. Homo sapiens' artificial adaptations must be a variation. The one pattern has repeated for billions of years. The pattern of laws of nature and of physics. Gravity and evolution, basically. On Earth, this one single pattern is the only game in town. By this logic, why would the process by which we produce these artificial adaptations be entirely original? Why wouldn't we simply adapt something that already existed in the same environment and competitive dynamics for billions of years? An existing process repeatedly proven throughout Earth's history to produce new things. The answer is we would, and we have. It is the simple answer to that question, which is the truth which has eluded philosophers and scientists throughout human history. The simple truth is that when Homo sapiens gained the natural adaptation of imagination, it brought into existence a second evolutionary pattern, a variation of the first natural evolutionary pattern, which Homo sapiens has been repeatedly using to produce all artificial things. Artificial evolution. The theory of artificial evolution. Quote, we meet with the admission in the writings of almost every experienced naturalist, as Milne Edwards has expressed it, nature is prodigal in variety, but niggard in innovation. Why, on the theory of creation, should there be so much variety and so little real novelty? End quote. Charles Darwin on the origin of species. I'm going to repeat that again. You'll see that repeated as a pattern throughout this briefing. And now I'll read you the quote from Aristotle. Quote, if on the other hand, art, artificial adaptations, imitates nature, natural adaptations, and it is the part of the same discipline to know the form and the matter up to a point. If this is so, it would be the part of physics, study of the world, also to know nature, evolution, in both natural and artificial, its senses. End quote. Aristotle, Physics. Charles Darwin's theory of natural evolution only expressed half the pattern of evolution unconcealed by the ancient Greek philosophers. The greatest minds in history, Parmenides, Heraclitus, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, were also in the process of unconcealing an entirely distinct pattern of evolution. The concept of artificial selection, Darwin mined from ancient Greek texts, is actually the core mechanism for this second conceptual pattern, the process of artificial evolution. The process of artificial evolution by means of artificial selection is an artificial variation of the process of natural evolution discovered by Darwin. The second process came into existence the moment the species Homo sapiens evolved to possess the natural adaptations of consciousness and imagination. From that moment forward, Homo sapiens began to develop artificial adaptations, i.e. fire, spears, cultures, farming, strategy, tactics, systems of government, clothing, etc., that artificially extended our phenotype individually and organized us for the cooperation at the group level. This provided our species with unlimited evolutionary possibilities, which enabled us to adapt to every natural ecosystem on Earth. However, I am not the first to perceive the pattern of artificial evolution. I read you Aristotle's quote. He saw that pattern. Below are scientists who express the process of artificial evolution in rough terms. My newly published book, On the Origin of Artificial Species, now fully documents this historic scientific discovery. Quote, as human beings became increasingly reliant on culture, artificial species, changes, artificial adaptations, that enable them to cooperate effectively, changing social patterns, artificial instincts, changing social technologies, artificial structural adaptations, changing social goals, concepts, they became increasingly able to replace genetic evolution, natural evolution, with cultural evolution, artificial evolution. They set us on an artificial evolutionary trajectory of rapid technological innovation, accelerated artificial evolution, the fruits of which, if tech experts are to be believed, will either save or destroy, cause the extinction of, humankind. End quote. James Mark Baldwin, a new factor in evolution. Now notice that last sentence. And remember that this is a brief about AI. Quote, the underlying rationale is straightforward. As natural evolution has produced successful life forms for practically all possible environmental niches on Earth, it is plausible that artificial evolution can produce specialized robots for various environments and tasks. The long-term vision foresees a radically new robotic technology, where robots can reproduce, evolve, and learn, thus becoming fitter and fitter to the environment and fit for purpose without the need for direct human oversight. Admittedly, this sounds like science fiction, but pioneering work done in academic labs worldwide and at the Vrije University Amsterdam is making it more and more science and less science fiction. End quote. A.E. Iben, Robot Evolution, Artificial Intelligence, by Artificial Evolution. He's literally saying it. These are three evolutionary scientists who have never met or spoken to each other. They physically couldn't. How is it that all three of them have identified the same pattern? It's because, as I said in my new book, On the Origin of Artificial Species, evolution is the only game in town. There's nothing else for them to describe except the patterns in nature, i.e. the world, described originally by the ancient Greek philosophers. It is so obvious once the artificial perceptive constraint on your thinking is removed. Evolution doesn't just apply to natural things, but also to everything humanity has created artificially with our imagination. It is that simple. There is a second pattern of evolution. This pattern is just an artificial variation of the natural pattern. As usual, Albert Einstein predicted my discovery would be this simple when he stated, quote, "Most of the fundamental ideas of science are essentially simple and may, as a rule, be expressed in a language comprehensible to everyone." End quote. It is that simple. Our species has been operating and competing in the same evolutionary conditions as all other species. Once we gained consciousness and imagination, we brought into existence an artificial variation of the pattern of natural evolution. We literally adapted the pattern of natural evolution to produce artificial things and became the keystone species of the entire planet. This is consistent with Darwin's discovery of natural evolution and validates his accurate observation. Quote, "We meet with this admission in the writings of almost every experienced naturalist, or as Milne Edwards has well expressed it, nature is prodigal in variety, but niggard in innovation. Why, on the theory of creation, should there be so much variety and so little real novelty?" End quote. Charles Darwin on the origin of species. And here I've presented to you the two patterns of evolution matched. And as you can see below in the blue boxes, we have developed new technologies, new artificial adaptations, which are artificial variations of the exact same pattern found in natural evolution. Because evolution is the only game in town, and there's nothing else to describe as we are, or to develop, as we are competing in the same environmental and evolutionary conditions as our ancestors 20 million years ago, 10 million years ago, 5 million years ago, 2.4 million years ago, and 500,000 years ago, even 340 years ago, and over almost 3,000 years ago, Aristotle and Plato, James Mark Baldwin, A.E. Ibid. They're all describing the same thing Darwin was, because there is nothing else to describe. It's a simple truth. If you simply think about it for a moment, without any Ivy League, ivory tower academic trying to tell you what to think, it's obvious. It's actually all of that training and education that has prevented people from seeing it. It's just right there in the open. I like to say, I watched a video on YouTube about carcinization, where multiple different lines of species have evolved into a crab form. It made sense. Same environment, same competitive conditions. Why wouldn't what we do to create artificial things evolve the same way a crab would to mirror natural evolution? The answer is we would. And we have. Machine ethics, redefined. AI, quote, "AI does not need to achieve the equivalent of our consciousness to be a threat to our species. Does a lion need to be consciously aware of its own existence to eat you? No, it is driven by natural instincts to kill. All an artificial species needs to be a threat to us is a form of artificial instincts." End quote. That's my quote from my book on the origin of artificial species. It's the same concept of artificial instincts that Aristotle was describing, and Darwin compared habit to natural instincts. It's literally the same thing. The evolutionary scientists Charles Darwin and Aristotle expressed both sides of the same coin, the processes of natural and artificial evolution. For this is the single pattern of evolution that Darwin missed when he narrowly defined the concept of artificial selection in his theory of natural evolution. This means the entire field of ethics needs to be reframed in evolutionary terms, not the current conceptual framework of the field of ethics as it is today. This also means that the concept of machine ethics is misunderstood and also needs to be reframed in evolutionary terms. For the AI engineers are daily programming AI systems with some form of artificial instincts. The same exact artificial instincts which I am training my two young children with each day to develop their character. With the understanding of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, we now know the term character to mean my children's complete set of natural and artificial instincts. Machine ethics really describes how humanity is to program Earth's first artificial species with artificial instincts that ensure it does not become a danger to our natural species. This is the true meaning of the concept of machine ethics. The current EU's ethics guideline for trustworthy AI needs to be rewritten to express the true meaning of Aristotle's concept of ethics. Only by implementing an evolutionary check on AI system self-evolution can our species hope to control Earth's first artificial species produced by the second pattern of evolution, artificial evolution. AI safety redefined. Quote, the evidence that artificial intelligence is artificially speciating is found in today's lexicon for the emerging field of AI safety. The very concepts that currently define AI safety, machine ethics, artificial instincts, and AI alignment, artificial reproduction, are variations of existing artificial evolutionary concepts. That's a quote from my book again, On the Origin of Artificial Species. And I say they are variations of existing concepts because now I've documented them. My book exists. My research exists. I have already reframed AI safety. With the discovery of the process of artificial evolution by means of artificial selection, we now know that the field of AI safety is literally focused on controlling the evolutionary trajectory of Earth's first artificial species. It is not science fiction any longer. It is a scientific fact which is confirmed by the underlying evolutionary concepts being expressed in our modern IT lexicon for AI safety itself. The future has arrived as our reality in the night before we became conscious of its arrival. Both core concepts of AI safety are variations of concepts found in existing natural evolutionary science. However, we now know it is also an expression of concepts from the newly discovered second pattern of evolution, artificial evolution. This now changes the context in which AI scientists such as Geoffrey Hinton's and Sam Altman's assertions on AI should be interpreted. AI is an artificial species being produced by an existing pattern of evolution. So Altman's statements that AI is a tool, not a creature, is not entirely accurate. In truth, AI is a tool with the capacity to become a species. Ask yourself, why else would Altman be asking the question at all? For we have never had to discuss this subject with any technology produced by artificial evolution in our species history. We haven't. It is now clear Altman is not qualified to answer that question. He doesn't actually know. And as Julius Caesar once said, quote, men willingly believe what they wish, end quote. Altman is guilty of deceiving himself subconsciously, and in so doing, he is misleading the public regarding the potential evolutionary possibilities of AI. That is why AI scientists such as Sam Altman are making definitive assertions without any scientific evidence, while other AI scientists, such as Geoffrey Hinton, are expressing a vague concern about the future evolution of AI. In the absence of information to confirm either perspective, humans typically believe those who speak the loudest and with the most conviction. I never do. But often those assertions are later proven unfounded by concrete scientific information. And those who urge caution based on what their natural instinct sense, but could not consciously articulate, often turn out to be correct. It is because human logic has repeatedly proven fallible, while the natural adaptations of instincts and imagination have been proven correct again and again. Evolution produces very, very effective things and adaptations. The discovery of a second pattern of evolution now provides the scientific information that confirms what the natural intuition of AI scientists such as Geoffrey Hinton and other technological thought leaders such as Elon Musk have been telling us about AI. It is a threat on par with nuclear weapons because it is a potential evolutionary threat to our species. As Professor Iben explicitly stated, quote, admittedly, this sounds like science fiction, but pioneering work done in academic labs worldwide and at the Vrije University, Amsterdam, is making it more and more science and less science fiction, end quote. Exactly. I'm not a doomsday cultist Chicken Little, ranting that the sky is falling. I am just the first person to express one of the simplest and most powerful ideas in human history, an idea based on the scientific fact that a fact pattern of the greatest minds in human history. there exists a second pattern of evolution by which we have produced all artificial things, such as technology of AI, which means AI is a product of an evolutionary process, just as our natural species, Homo sapiens, is a product of an evolutionary process. And AI is, in its most practical sense, an artificial variation of the adaptations which made us the apex species on the planet. How else could AI take your job from you unless it was exactly what I just said? Which makes AI, in practical reality, the emergence of an artificial species on par with our species. Exactly. An artificial species produced by the process of artificial evolution by means of artificial selection. The pattern of this scientific fact is present in the lexicon of the field of AI and AI safety. The AI scientists and engineers, most of them are believing what they wish to be true, and they're blatantly ignoring all the red flags that are now obvious once you listen to this video. Like a guy who's so in love with a girl, he just can't see all of her red flags and flaws. And eventually, the relationship ends as a disaster for that young man or woman. All that is necessary to see this truth is to remove a perceptive constraint that has been conditioned into your mind, that the possibility of the emergence of an artificial species is only science fiction. The words of Professor Ivan ring true for a reason, because they are scientifically correct. They are true because they are consistent with Charles Darwin's assertion about evolution. I will repeat one last time. Quote, we meet with this admission in the writings of almost every experienced naturalist, or as Milne Edwards has well expressed it, nature is prodigal in variety, but niggard in innovation. Why, on the theory of creation, should there be so much variety and so little real novelty? End quote. Think about that for a second. There is a second pattern of evolution that is a variation of the first pattern. The pattern of artificial evolution explains the evolutionary threat of artificial intelligence. It is that simple, and it changes everything. This video, for me, is a call to action. I am committed to protecting Americans and protecting every single child on this planet from the evolutionary threat of artificial intelligence. I am a former military officer, both enlisted and commissioned. I am the son of a United States Army combat veteran from Vietnam who raised me in a conservative home, not in terms of politics, but in terms of my thinking and how I conduct myself as a person. And my brother, who also enlisted in the Army, National Guard, and became a commissioned officer and served in combat in Iraq, who we lost to PTSD after he got home. I am not a radical. I'm inherently a conservative-minded person in a personal sense, not a political one. I am not in the habit of making hyperbolic and absurd statements. I'm a very serious person, raised by a very serious man to do very serious things. And I am telling you, in all seriousness and honesty, that I believe that with the discovery of the second pattern of evolution, which our species has been trying to discover throughout our entire history, it reframes artificial intelligence in evolutionary terms. This is something that every single politician on the planet, every single corporate executive, every single military leader, and everybody who is a leader in their communities across the planet needs to be made aware of. And the American people need to be made aware of this before they go to the ballot box, because this is going to become an important issue in American politics and in the world when people are going to vote. And voting is actually artificial selection. So this is a call to action. I have submitted this information to the National Institute of Science and Technology. I have gone up and met with a congressman's staff, and I have coordinated with my congressman directly. Anyone who sees this, please bring it to the attention of your political elected officials and your leaders. Only through using our imagination and being able to perceive the invisible pattern, as Plato called them, of evolution, artificial evolution. Just like natural evolution was invisible, but Darwin was able to perceive it with his imagination. Only by using our imagination, as I have done, to finally see the invisible pattern, second pattern of evolution, artificial evolution, can we then understand the implications of what artificial intelligence really is and what it means to our species. And I say this as a person who never set out to discover the second pattern and never ever thought he would ever be making a video on AI safety. But once I discovered, by accident, the second pattern of evolution, it became clear to me, since I'm in the IT field as an ITIL master, that the implications for artificial intelligence were obvious. And that's why I published my book, and that's why I'm out here as a proponent of AI safety. And I really believe that the planet and the United Nations and every nation on the planet needs to get together and reframe the field of AI safety in evolutionary terms, so that we can actually come up with the right solution to the evolutionary challenge that is presented to us for the first time in Earth's history. And that's really what it comes down to. For billions of years, we've only seen natural species being produced. And now, for the first time, we're producing artificial species. I will be the first to acknowledge, each step along the way of discovering this, I had trouble believing myself, especially at the end about the artificial species part. I definitely don't want to be the messenger for this. But once I realized the logic chain that I had built, it was inescapable that artificial intelligence is the emergence with a tool that has emerged, which has the capacity to self-evolve into an artificial species, because all it needs is artificial instincts. It doesn't have to be conscious of its own existence, just like a lion, to eat you. It just needs to have autonomous will, which we cannot control, just like a child. That is the sufficient threshold. Discussions about consciousness and sentience are red herrings, and they're a false threshold for viewing the danger. And that's why I'm here. Please call your congressman, call your elected officials, tell them about my book, tell them that you wanted my research and my company and myself to be added as part of the companies that support the AI safety framework being developed by the National Institute of Science and Technology. And if you're in the EU, contact the EU, contact your members of parliament, contact your elected officials, and make sure that the EU also reframes their ethical guidelines for machine ethics around evolutionary concepts that I've expressed in this video. Without doing so, the EU cannot be successful. And that's why I'm here today making this video. It's a call to action for all of us, because only by using the most powerful evolutionary advantage, including more powerful than AI, ever produced by the pattern of natural evolution, human imagination, can we hope to protect ourselves from our own creation, so we do not suffer the same scenario and the same tragic events as Dr. Frankenstein, who was unable to control the artificial species he had produced by means of artificial evolution, by means of artificial selection. Thank you all. God bless America, and God bless your families.